Turn that off. It's time for No Pad Sports Talk. Stay tuned as two brothers bring you the latest from your Michigan teams and beyond in hockey, baseball, football, and more. Let's get started. Here are your hosts, JD and Steve.
Welcome to another edition of No Pad Sports Talk here on an early Sunday morning after a Michigan Wolverines victory.
Absolutely. And I am Steve, and I am happy to be here knowing that Michigan is a three-time Big Ten champion, 3 times in a row Big Ten champion.
Right, yeah.
And as Joel Klatt said during the trophy presentation, he's the only Jim Harbaugh on this Michigan Wolverine team is the only team to have 3 outright back-to-back Big Ten championships. Team 144. It's been a heck of a season. Let's just say it's been a heck of a season.
I remember, we were talking about the upcoming Michigan season, and there was a lot of high hopes with this team. And a lot of chatter you heard coming out of their, their training camps and all that stuff was that this team's really good.
Yep.
And here we are, right? I know it's technically not over yet. We still have, the playoffs and everything coming up, but they achieved their main goal in beating Ohio State. They achieved their secondary goal in winning the Big Ten, right? Yep. So now it's just going to be the final goal of just going out on top and winning everything.
Yeah, winning a national championship. And as we were talking offline just before we came on for this episode, we were talking about the playoffs, the playoff committee, and how those things are going to get ranked out. And before we get too much into that, there's been so much that's been going on with this Michigan football team this season, right? Mm-hmm. Jim Harbaugh was not on the sideline for 6 games this season.
Right. Yeah.
Right? 6 games. So tell me, talking about resilient, right? Fighting through adversity, right? And I get the first 3 football games of the Michigan schedule was, they were cream puff teams. I get it, right? But in those first 3 games, Harbaugh couldn't even be at practice, right? Like he couldn't have any involvement. I mean, he was out of the building for 3 straight weeks.
Yep.
Which was not the case for the last 3 games of the regular season, right? Where he was able to, game plan, be on the sideline or during practices, but he just couldn't be at the games. They were game suspensions, not
correct.
Full out, just gotta miss, right?
Yeah.
But there are not, honestly, I don't know how many teams that could have overcome that, right? 6 games without your head coach, right? That just tells you the kind of coordinators and assistants and like what Jim Harbaugh has been able to build at Michigan, the trust that he's built into his coordinators, his assistant coaches, and everybody that he's got working on that team, because they're the ones that had to carry the load, right?
Of course, yeah.
It was at the beginning of the season, it was really weird, and I hated it because he didn't name one guy as the acting head coach, right? So the first 3 games got rotated. I think Mike Hart had one, Sharon Moore had one, Mentor had one. So to me, that's a lot of juggling, right? And it's, to me, when you talk about the head coach position, you got to have somebody out there that did it. That's why I like at the end of the season, Sharon Moore was the guy. They have one person to look to, and it just made a difference down the stretch.
I mean, how many times have you seen a boat with two captains,
Right?
or like, I mean, you just can't do it. Like, you have to have that one person that has the final say. That's it.
Yeah.
You just have to have that.
Now, I'm gonna say this because this is a little hard for me to say.
Spell it.
So, Urban Meyer, did I don't know if it was a podcast. There was a video clip, right? And he was talking about the job Sharon Moore did, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, he's the offensive line coach, right? He's the offensive coordinator, and he was acting head coach, right? So leading up to the game, right? He called the offensive line coach position like one of the toughest coaching positions there is, because there's so many guys that you gotta, get together, right?
Right.
And he says, like, during a game, like the planning, the offensive coordinator, that's a tough position, right? And Sharon Moore was able to check off both of those, right? And lastly is the acting head coach, making, the tough calls, like the fourth down calls, the things that, a head coach has to do on top. So Urban Meyer was actually impressed, right? And it was kind of in that moment, there was a smidgen of respect that I had for Urban Meyer, right? It was at that very moment. Like, it's kind of fleeting because it's like it still leaves a bad taste in my mouth, right? Just to say it. But the fact that he was able to view the game and have something nice to say about Michigan. I'm sure it wasn't.
I'm kind of surprised, brother, that you did not just spontaneously burst into flames right then.
I'm telling you, man. It's like I'm pulling on my shirt. It's kind of giving me the willies, but I'm just.
Look,
I was impressed by the fact that he was able to do that, because I just, there's been years where it didn't matter what Michigan had done. Michigan sucked to him. They were the worst team. They were that team up north, as they say, in that team from the South.
Right.
That team in Ohio. Right.
Yeah.
So, he even talked about the rivalry. I don't know. The bottom line is, Michigan is 13-0. They've overcome a bunch. I told JD before we got started, I didn't want to do this until I saw the trophy presentation, right? Because I wanted to see Coach Harbaugh get the trophy from the Big Ten commissioner, who suspended him after saying, we don't have evidence that he was involved, but he's going to be not allowed at the games anyway. Right?
Yeah.
And Jim Harbaugh was like, nope, you're going to give it to Zach Zinter. And he's like, I don't even want to be around you, dude. That's kind of what, that was the thing. I'm like, I got to see the tension. And there wasn't any. It was kind of a letdown, just a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just, I wanted to see that. But Jim Harbaugh did get the last word, right? So when Joel Klatt interviewed him, he came up there. He says, "What did you have to say about third time?" All he turned around and said, "Bet," because this, right?
Yeah,
it was awesome. It was so. I mean, come on, like, he gets suspended on a Friday on a holiday, right? He's on a plane to Penn State. Doesn't even know he's suspended until he's landed, right? So everybody goes up. I forget, was it Zach Zenter or Keegan? One of the offensive line put that out on Twitter, or X as it's called now.
Right.
And he just put #bet, right? And Tom Brady posted, JJ, like everybody was like, bet, right?
Yeah.
Charles Woodson, he wore the sweatshirt on the game. He's like, bet, right? Michigan against the world, right? So that's what he said. That was the first words out of his mouth after winning a 3-time back-to-back Big Ten championship. He's just like, bet. That's how you put one in the face of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So I thought that was poetic, right? But okay. So that aside, the whole scandal, it's the NCAA is still investigating. There could be more that happens before next season.
I thought it was all over. I thought the reason why he took the suspension was to prevent the investigation going any further.
The Big Ten suspension, or Big Ten's investigation, he stopped the Big Ten's investigation into it any further. The NCAA is still investigating this. So there is, I think, I know Scott and I, my buddy Scott, we talked about this. I think we actually have mentioned it even on the show, that early in the season, I didn't think Jim Harbaugh was coming back. Right? I think he's going to get an opportunity to go coach in the NFL, and he's going to take and it was all going to be dependent about how well the team did this year, right? So they've done something no Big Ten team has done before. They're 3-time back-to-back outright champs. They're going to go to their 3rd straight college football playoff. My hope is that they obviously make it out of the first round and get into the national championship game for a shot to play at the title, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think if that happens, because there's a lot that's riding on whether for next year's team, right? JJ McCarthy still has a year of eligibility left, right?
Yeah, it's probably not.
We know Blake,
though.
I don't. He's already projected to be a 1st-round pick,
right?
So whether he goes mid to late round, 1st round, or early 2nd round, I just don't know that he's going to be back, right? Specifically because of injury stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. Blake Corum is going to the NFL. This is his last year. I know Edwards, I think he still has a year eligibility left, so he could come back and be the main back next year. We don't know who the quarterback's going to be in the future at Michigan, right? I think it's going to be Alex Orji. I think he's the leading candidate. But then there's Jesse Minter, Sharon Moore. Either one of those guys could get offered head coaching jobs, or interview for and then move on and to be a head coach someplace. Mike Hart, the running backs coach, he did an interview at Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
He obviously didn't get that job. They went to gave it to some other guy at Indiana there. But Michigan's got these coaches that are going to be sought after for different positions on other teams, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Harbaugh has already been, every year, every offseason, there's been this thing he's going to go, right? So there are a couple of places, like right now, like there was a rumor that somebody on the Washington, either the ownership or somebody in the organization wants the Washington Commanders to go after Harbaugh. And I thought to myself, it was kind of out of left field because I never thought they'd get rid of Ron Rivera.
Yeah.
But I think this is going to be the end for, that's how that's going to end. And his brother John is in Baltimore.
Yep.
So, the Washington D.C. and Baltimore, I mean, I think it's probably an hour and a half drive. So be close to his brother again. That's a possibility, right? Las Vegas, definitely a possibility. He's got connections or ties to the Davis family. I still think this best option, if he was going to get it, is to wait for Pete Carroll to retire and go take the Seattle Seahawks. Because the Seahawks are built like the Michigan Wolverines right now. They are run first, play tough defense, and pass the ball when they when they need to. But there's just so much riding on. If they win a national title, all of those guys are leaving. I believe it. There's nothing left to prove, right? They're all going to move on. Sharon Moore might end up being the head coach at Michigan, and Harbaugh leaves, right?
Yeah.
And then, Mentor gets to stay on. Maybe, he still stays on as the defensive coordinator, just because of the relationship that's there. So there would still be some core pieces that might stay. But, I mean, they're going to lose a lot, right? And this transfer portal.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And then the transfer portal, that thing is going to open up here, and there's going to be these players that are coming in. I mean, there's rumors that that 5-star quarterback that went to UCLA, Dante Moore, he's going to put his name into the hat after 1 year at UCLA. And he's from Detroit, so Michigan or Michigan State are obviously on that list of places for him to land, which could definitely help Michigan moving next year. Because if you look at Michigan's schedule next year, they've got Texas in week 2. and Quinn Ewers, that guy is no joke. He threw for 452 yards today.
Yeah.
Right? 4 touchdowns. Was just on fire.
Well, before we get too far ahead, the season's not over yet. Let's talk about the game itself.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
We had of course, it was a defensive battle. But, as happy as I am that they won, obviously, I'm left thinking that, I don't know. I don't think they looked that good in offense. I can't. When you think about the touchdowns they made, it was due to short field situations.
Yep.
They weren't able to drive the length of the field. Otherwise they just basically kick field goals. And
yep.
When you're talking about the playoff system, I mean, nobody in the right mind believes that Iowa is as good as any of the other top 4, top 5, top 10, top 15, top 20 teams in the NCAA.
Yep.
So look, only being able to basically kick field goals on offense. I mean, the defense looked good, obviously, but Iowa's always struggled in offense. Looking at this game, the fact that Michigan shut them out, that was kind of expected. And then, but not being able to move the ball and score touchdowns, that don't look good, man.
So, I understand what you're saying, right? Iowa, they showed a stat during the game. Iowa offensively ranked in the bottom 2% of almost in all categories, right?
Yeah.
But defensively, they ranked in the top 10 in football, right?
I get it, but
now,
I don't put a lot into that ranking though, man, because they didn't exactly have a tough schedule.
Well, they just played a good team, and they showed that the defense really is something, right?
Maybe.
They held us to 4 field goals, right? And the 2 touchdowns that we did get, like you said, was because of short field, and that's okay.
But, dude, Penn State put up 31, right?
Okay.
Penn State put up 31. So,
Ah.
Ohio State put up 54.
Okay.
So, I'm just saying, right? I'm sorry. No, that was last year. Wow. I went way too far back. So, but anyways, Penn State did put up 31. So and I don't put that much credit into, other teams like, Northwestern and Illinois and Rutgers.
I know. The Big Ten West is weak.
It's weak.
Yep. So, if you watched, if you had seen lots of the games and watched Iowa play, the defense is just, they're coached really well. They're super disciplined. They're always where they need to be. And they played like that tonight, right? And you're right. I'm worried about the offense, right? As far as what Michigan was able to produce.
Mm-hmm.
They had the one, we'll call it longest drive in the first half, right? When they went down that, they went through it on fourth and 7, got that one, and then they had it like 4th and 1, but they kicked the field goal instead, right?
Yeah.
So, but that was their longest drive of the game. I don't think they had more than 250 total yards in the game, right? Blake Corum, they couldn't get the running game going, right? We're missing players on offense, on our offensive line. The offensive line looked bad. They couldn't pass block to save their life, right? There's a lot that's happening right now, right? Offensively for Michigan, okay? And yeah, you can look at, I'm making excuses for them, but they did enough to go out and win the game, right?
Absolutely.
So,
but look, when you only get 213 total yards against Iowa, only 66 rushing yards, and that has been their strength all season, and you only come away with 66 rushing yards. And your third down efficiency was 3 for 15. Again,
yeah,
this is Iowa. Like
it was,
and look, I agree with you. They're very well coached and very well disciplined team, but at some point, right? Like Iowa's not getting the recruits that Michigan is. So I can't make excuses for Michigan in this game. Iowa played good. Iowa's defense was disciplined, but I can't just give them a pass because they won the game. Their defense shut out Iowa's offense. That was a given. I mean, if they should have, period. Yeah. Their offense is terrible. The only reason why they won as many games as they did is, like you said, their defense is pretty good. But I can't look at this game and think that right now, again, from the snapshot of this game, I want to make it clear that this game did not fill me with confidence that they'd be able to hang with Alabama or Georgia or any other teams in the playoffs right now with how they perform today. And if those teams look at Iowa and say, okay, what did they do? How did they shut out Michigan? Can we duplicate that? I mean, what is Michigan going to fall back on? I mean, how do you have 66 yards rushing and only 147 yards passing? And, J.J. McCarthy is thought to be like one of the top quarterbacks in the league, but you only put up 147.
Okay, well, he didn't put up much against Ohio State either.
The only difference is it's Ohio State. It's not Iowa.
Okay.
There's a difference in talent, and there's and it's a little bit different because, I mean, he put up 182 against Ohio State, but you put up 156 for rushing, and again, you're gonna continue to go with what works. Plus, they averaged 5.6 yards per play versus Ohio State. because the running game was so effective. When you only, at the same time, go from 5.6 down to 3.3 against Iowa, again, I can't let that go. It's not good enough for me.
Okay. I can tell you it was good enough today. Is it going to be the same team you're going to see in a month? No. I hope not. Right? I just, but you're talking about because Iowa beat lesser teams, right? And that's fine. They did. They beat lesser teams.
I'm just talking about their stats, them being ranked top 10 in defense. I'm just saying I can't put a lot of stock in that because of the teams they played.
Well, it's what it is, right? So that's like saying the 13-0 Florida State team isn't going to make the playoffs because somebody with a one loss has they had better opponents, or their loss was to a stronger team.
I don't think that's the same thing at all. Honestly, I don't think it's the same thing at all because we're not talking about the possibility of one of the teams missing the playoff. I'm just saying about as far as their defensive or offensive rankings go. I cannot put a lot of stock in because you said their defense is good. It's ranked in the top 10. I can't put a lot of stock in that ranking if they're playing against all these much, much weaker teams.
Okay, but you could say the same thing about Michigan then.
Yeah, you certainly can to a certain extent, but because, yes, you can.
Other than Penn State, Ohio State, they didn't play any other ranked opponents.
Agreed.
Right?
I know.
So
I'm not being partial. I'm not. I agree. You can say that about Michigan.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to see Michigan, even though they're ranked number 2 and they won. It's hard for me to see them going to number 1 after the Georgia loss because of their strength of schedule. You look at a team like Washington.
Yep.
Much tougher strength of schedule.
Well, and they beat Oregon twice, and that's not an easy thing to do.
That's exactly right. They beat Oregon twice. You're right.
Absolutely. So look, we didn't play well. We didn't play well in all 3 phases of the game, right? We did well on special teams. We played well on defense, and we did just enough on offense.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was good enough for today, right?
It is. Yes.
I don't think it was good enough to move them to 1. Right?
No, I don't either.
Now, does the College Football Playoff Committee think that because they were 2 and they won their championship, they won the title, they didn't score, and it gets moved up and they make them 1? It's absolutely possible.
It's possible.
Right?
Yeah.
But if I had a vote, and you obviously know I'm a huge Michigan fan, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I still keep Michigan at 2 because I think Washington had better wins.
Agreed. They did.
Right? So Washington comes in at 1. I leave Michigan at 2.
Okay.
Right? Because Washington, I think, is currently 3.
They are.
So it's not a big jump, right?
No, it's not.
Right? Florida State moves up to 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I only say that because I think if the College Football Committee leaves off an undefeated team out of the top 4, then while this is the last year for it, to me, it should just have an asterisk on it. You just can't do it.
You can't do it.
Right?
No, you can't.
You can't. Right?
No.
So those are your top 3 teams. And whether they're the 3 best teams, that's a whole other story. That's 16 hours of you and I going back and forth about who we think the 4 best teams are, right?
It's because it's too subjective.
Exactly, right? Because I could say the 4 best teams would be Georgia, Michigan, Washington, and you could pick them from Oregon, Alabama, Texas, Ohio State, right? I mean, there are 7 teams that could fall into the 4 best teams.
Absolutely.
Okay. So who's going to take that 4th spot? You know,
I say Texas, man.
That to me, Texas has to be the guy, right? They have to be that team, right?
Yeah.
I know Alabama won the SEC, right? They beat the number 1 team, right? But who did they lose to this year?
Texas.
Lost to Texas. So that's why Texas is currently ranked in front of them at 7, where Alabama is at 8, right?
And Texas beat them by 10. It's not as if they barely squeaked by. It was 10 points, right?
And they beat them in Alabama.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So Texas, I say they have to. If they're going to look at it as subjectively as you can, or objectively, either way, Texas has the head-to-head win. Right?
And they crushed Oklahoma State 49-21 yesterday.
Yeah. That game was over in the first half.
It was crazy.
It was over in the first half. They only scored 14 points in the second half. Like they had a touchdown in the third quarter and a touchdown in the fourth quarter. But that game was over in the first half. So, but like I said, bottom line is, that would be the 4 teams. So Michigan would get Florida State, and then Washington is playing Texas. Now that Washington-Texas game, that's going to be a game.
That would be awesome.
Right?
That'd be fun.
That's going to be a game right there.
Yeah.
Right? Like I said, Quint, the QB from Texas, Ewers, he could be the real deal. And Ohio State could be shaking their head because, like, this could have been, because that's where he came from.
Yeah.
Right? So Ohio State's thinking to themselves, why didn't we give this guy a shot? Right? So those are my top 4. I think that's how it's going to come out. I think that's how it should come out. Now, will it? No. I think they're going to do some kind of, it'll be Washington, Michigan, Texas, and Alabama.
You think so?
Yep. And they're going to get it wrong. I think that they're going to do Florida State wrong. And I think they're going to hold it against them because Travis, what's-his-face, their starting quarterback isn't there. He's hurt. He's going to be out.
Right.
They were on their 3rd-string quarterback today because their backup quarterback got hurt.
Yep.
Haven't played well, with the backups, at quarterback. But to me, you can't hold that against them, right? You can't hold the fact that they're a different team with their backups in when they're still winning games.
Right.
Right?
I agree.
So that's why I think it'll be absolutely just it'd be criminal, for lack of a better term. It'd be criminal for them to leave Ohio or Florida State out. But I'm telling you, I think that's what's going to happen.
I see it happening. I do.
Right?
I don't think
we can't leave Alabama out in 2 years in a row out of the Final Four. Now the SEC champs, they beat Georgia, the only team that's done it in 2 years. Well, great. But now what you're saying is you're taking a number 4 team that didn't lose a game all year, and you're going to drop them out of 4, and you're going to move the 8 and the 7 teams up into the top 4 because they're conference champions. That's, in the end, then what they need to do is say, okay, the top 4 teams from the Power 5 conferences get to go to the playoffs. That's what they should have been doing. because that's what they're going to say.
Right.
And, Florida State plays in a Power 5 conference.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's going to come down. There's no way in the world they're going to leave an SEC team out of the Final Four.
I don't think they will either. But
I'm not saying Alabama didn't play. Look, Alabama came back like Milroe, their quarterback. They benched him after their second game.
Yeah.
Right? And he's turned it around. Like they won 11 straight. So it's not like they're not a good team. They had a hard-fought game against Auburn. I thought Auburn was going to pull that out.
I thought they were going to as well. Yeah.
Right? So, and they found a way to win. So, I hate it, and I hate it for Florida State. I hate it for Florida State fans, right? I just don't know that they're going to make it, and they're going to hold it against them because they don't have their best player playing in a game.
Right. No,
and that's just, it's absolutely, it is. It's criminal. It's criminal.
I want to pivot real quick here. All right. So we have Michigan, and we know some of the players that are probably coming out to go to the NFL. All right.
Yes.
So I'm on a website, NFLDraftBuzz.com, and they have the way they rank the players, and what's really neat about them is they have like the average overall rank. So of all the databases out there that rank college players, that's legit. That they say, okay, this is what their average position is in with all those databases. So my question to you, brother, is what player on Michigan do you think they have ranked the highest right now? Now, this is not by position. This is overall. All right.
Just overall?
Overall. For all positions, who do you think's ranked highest?
I would say it's J.J. McCarthy, just based on some of the buzz that I've heard. Not having seen that at all, but just where they're having him ranked, I'd say it's J.J. McCarthy.
Okay. And where do you think well, it's kind of a two-part question, and kind of the same though, but like, where do you think NFLDraftBuzz.com has him ranked in their database, and where do you think he ranks as far as like average across all media outlets?
He's 20 to 25.
Okay. On NFLDraftBuzz.com, he is ranked 42.
Okay.
His average overall rank is 38.1.
Okay.
Now, where do you think, as just quarterbacks now that he's already down at 42?
Yep.
Where do you think he ranks just in terms of other quarterbacks that's eligible for the draft?
Right now, he's 10. Like, if I had to go through and look at some, I'd say 10.
Wow, that surprises me. They have
just because of the talk with some other Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, the kid out of North Carolina. I don't think he's eligible for the draft yet.
He is.
Drake something. Drake May.
Yeah.
But
he's eligible.
Is he? Okay. So just based on some of the buzz, that's where I'd put him. I think early in the season he was ranked the top 5. Obviously, in the first half of the season he was a Heisman hopeful. Right?
Okay. So this NFLDraftBuzz.com has him ranked 9 overall across all media outlets. He's ranked 6. So let me just go through this real quick and tell me if you think that these players are ranked ahead of him. Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams would. Well, I would say yes. Yes,
no, like,
he is ranked
your opinion, not like what they have him.
My opinion.
Your opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
In my opinion, based on play, I'd go with no. He shouldn't be ranked above him.
Who shouldn't be ranked above who?
Williams should not be ranked above JJ.
Okay. He is the consensus number 1 right now.
I know.
Drake May.
So he's got really good, a lot of talent. So I would say they're about even. If I had to rank them, I'd rank him and JJ McCarthy even.
So my question is this then, brother. You said he's ranked about 10, but you just said that you would take JJ McCarthy over Caleb Williams, and he's even with Drake May.
Yeah.
So do you really think he should be 10?
And I only say that about Caleb Williams is because he's just not played well. Right? Like the consistency for him has not been there.
No, consistency's been bad.
I know where everybody is saying like he's got the skill set, he's got the blah 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 blah. I've heard it all, right? About Caleb Williams. I mean, he's the reigning Heisman Trophy winner. It's not like he's a great college football player. But if you were going to ask me where I think they should be ranked, right?
Yeah.
I thought the question when you first said, where is JJ ranked? He's top 10, he'd be 10, right? And that's just because of where would I rank him? I'd say he's top 5.
Okay. What about Jaden Daniels of LSU?
So he's a unique guy. He's like that Anthony Richardson. I mean, the guy ran for 1,100 yards. He's got a freaking cannon. To me, he'd be the number 1 guy.
Okay.
To me, he'd be the number 1 guy.
Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington.
So he's pretty consistent. He would probably be my number 2 or number 3 guy.
Shedeur Sanders.
I put him at 15. I put him way below. Yeah.
Okay. Bo Nix.
Another guy. He's got a lot of playing time. Lots of starts. Lots of experience. Played really well in big games, even against Washington in both games. If you look at his stats.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say he's probably 6 or 7.
Quinn Ewers.
So I haven't seen a lot of his games. Now I know he missed at least one game because he was injured, but the kid has been super consistent. I put him at 4.
Carson Beck from Georgia.
Yeah, he's kind of I hate using the term game manager because a lot of people could say that about JJ too. But I think I'd have him outside the top 10.
Okay. So this is where NFLDraftBuzz.com has JJ McCarthy, number 9 after all those guys I previously named. Some of the players that come directly after JJ McCarthy is Michael Pratt, Jordan Travis, Tyler Van Dyke, Spencer Rattler, Joe Milton, KJ Jefferson, Cameron Ward, and I'll just stop there.
Okay.
So, I don't know. I just found it kind of interesting that, I guess overall, what I found interesting as far as here and this website is that they don't have any Michigan players, even though they're ranked the number 2 in the country. They don't have any Michigan players ranked in the top 30.
Yeah.
Like that just because I mean the highest is 42 by JJ McCarthy.
Yeah.
I mean
Blake Corum I would say Blake Corum was probably the next, but
it's Chris Jenkins.
Chris Jenkins. He's the defensive tackle.
Yeah.
But Blake Corum as a running back, his size is hurting him.
Being 5'8".
Yep. Right. That's going to be a negative But you have to look at production, right? I mean, 55 touchdowns in a career.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think he's 225, 230, 220, or 220, 225 at 5'8". This guy is he's freaking brick wall.
They have
right?
him again. They have him listed on here anyways at 213 as an FYI.
213.
Yeah.
I want to say he's probably closer to 220, but I don't. It doesn't matter. When he hits you, he's leaning forward, right?
Yeah.
It's hardly ever where you've seen him in the last 2 years get hit and fall backwards.
The one thing that kind of I thought was a little bit of a snub here was Mike Sainristil.
Yeah.
I know his size is only 5'10", so it's not like the prototypical shutdown corner of 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2". But
Yep.
But
that's why he plays nickel.
He's just always been. He's always been a gamer. He's always made plays.
Well, if you saw what he did today,
yeah,
I mean, he had no problem getting in there and laying the wood to you, right? He did it last week to Travion Henderson and just flat out crushed him, right? And this guy, he's like I said, 5'10". He's only 180 pounds.
Yeah.
Right? But he plays bigger than that, right?
Yes,
he was an offense. He was a receiver when he first came to Michigan. They moved. He's only played defensive back for 3 years, actually 2 years. I think last year was his first year, and then this year. So he's only done it 2 years, right? So I think that's hurting him because of the experience, which is maybe experience and size is going to limit him, right? And he doesn't run back kicks, right? So I don't know how he projects to the NFL. He plays nickel. He plays the slot corner. That's kind of his position, and I think that's where they'll have him there. But yeah, there are a lot of good players on the Michigan team that have played well together, right? And I think that's why you see the fact that they've played as well as they have, right? JJ McCarthy is 25-1 as a starter, right?
So yeah. But kind of staying with Sainristil real quick,
yeah.
So just what I like about him is the progression, right? Like a lot of times when again, it's me personally, but that's something I want to see. Is I want to see that the player is getting better, that they haven't plateaued too early,
right?
And like you said, when he was 2020 as a freshman, he came in, and of course it was a bad year anyways with COVID and everything else. So that you just go ahead and throw out that year, whatever. So sophomore in 2021, he only played in one game and one snap. That's it. One game, one snap. That's it for 2021. So he really only has 2022 to look back on and say, what did he do in 2022? Well, he played 623 snaps. When he was targeted, he gave up a QB rating of 91.4 in 2022. Now, that's not good, obviously. But he also had eight pressures and 2 sacks that same year too. Now, here's what I like about the progression for 2023. All right. His QB rating when targeted is 30.8. Like, that is elite. So going from 91.4 to a 30.8 is elite. And the fact that you have, on average across all of these databases, he's ranked as the 29th best cornerback in the NCAA. That's shocking to me. That's all. But that's what I found shocking.
Hey, and again, so some of these, and like I said, it's experience, and I think it's his size. And I think when they look at the overall projection to the next level, That's what they see. Like, he's got a super high ceiling, right? Because he's young at his position.
Yeah.
So he could develop into, the elite shutdown corner, even at his size, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's not, I don't know, he might not be there yet. He's shown that he can, right? So, and I think the fact that he has played receiver and he understands routes, right, has made that transition for him to the cornerback much easier. And that's allowed him to, okay, this is when I see this, right? So if a receiver puts his left leg out, he can read that left leg and say, okay, he's going to try and come inside or go outside, right? And he's telling the quarterback, so he knows these things. And I'm sure cornerbacks at that level, they understand that too, but they haven't run those routes. He has run those routes, right? So he has a different understanding of when they're going to make their break, when to start looking for the ball. So it's definitely helped in his transition. He's definitely better than the 29th ranked guy. And when you look at his ceiling, he's definitely better.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I would kind of think so, but
Yeah,
just like I said, it just kind of made me think, like, who do they have all above him? I mean, we make him 29, but yeah. Anyway,
well, all these guys who are 6'1", 6'2".
well, not everybody.
Well, I bet there's plenty of them that are up there at 6'1", 6'2", and still running a 4.4 40.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
But
I mean, those. When you look at that height and that size, and you're still running a 4.4, yeah, okay, you translate to the next level.
Oh, 100%. That's what I mean. Again, prototypical. You kind of want that,
Correct.
6'1", 6'2" size running the 4.4. Like
Right.
that's what you want for coverage. Because again, the receivers, that's what they're doing now too. You have to match it.
Right. Well, that's when we talk prototypical, when we were talking about quarterbacks, and you said talked about Daniels.
Yeah.
He's not. He's your prototypical college quarterback. College quarterback, because of the fact that how well he moves and his rushing ability, right? The question is, when he goes to the NFL, what team is able to utilize those talents and create the offense to work for him, right? That was my thing about Anthony Richardson. Will the Colts be able to modify their offense to fit the way Anthony Richardson plays? Because when you select those kind of players, you got to be able to fit them in. You can't try to make them fit your offense.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that's not really how it works, especially if you're going to try and play them as a rookie. You got to play to their strengths. And I think that's kind of what Carolina hasn't done with their quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to play him in their offense in an NFL style. Like, they're not playing to his strengths. They're not letting him get outside the tackle. They're not. And he's taking a beating, right? So his confidence, Bryce Young's confidence, has just got to be just in the toilet, right?
Yeah.
So, and then, on the flip side of that, you look at C.J. Stroud, who we were very high on coming into the draft, but I still didn't think he was going to play as well as he's playing, right?
No, that's
not as a rookie. Yeah, not as a rookie. So, for Stroud, it's going to be okay. Well, what does he do in season 2, right? Yeah. You talk about that growth, and not plateauing, right? So, what can he do in year 2? But you just when it comes to players and you're projecting and you're looking at these things, we talk about it when we talked about the Lions draft. The Lions went out and they drafted players that they wanted that fit their system, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I think if teams do that, there are just some positions coming out of the college game now, specifically quarterback, where offenses are going to have to change, right? They have to evolve because that's the talent that they're getting.
Yep.
Right? And, some of these quarterbacks that came out of college that were mobile quarterbacks that didn't make it in the NFL, they didn't make it because either one, they were on really bad teams, but they were put in offenses that didn't fit the way they play the game, right? So this is kind of what it is.
Well, we're approaching the hour mark, and we've kind of went all over the place. I mean, talking about prospects and the college football playoffs, the rankings, the orders. Like, we kind of covered a lot of different types of information here. But I want to, you're a much bigger Michigan fan than I am. You live, breathe, and die the maize and blue. So I want to give you the last word on Michigan.
So I've been super impressed with them all season. I've also been very disappointed in some of the things that I've seen, right? There was a stretch where J.J. McCarthy just could not hit his receivers in stride. He was throwing behind them. He was throwing high. He was throwing low. He was even doing that today a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my final word is that Michigan has all of the talent in the world, and they have the ability to win the national championship. I think if they can play 4 quarters on all 3 phases, they win a national championship.
What would you put their chances at right now? 10%, 50%, 80%?
If I had to give them I'm going to kind of cop out. I'm probably going to do like 40%.
Okay.
And it's going to be who they play in the first round. Right? It's going to be, I think, wherever this final ranking is going to put them at and whoever they're going to rank in the top 4. I think Alabama is going to be a dangerous game if Michigan is number 1 and Alabama comes in at 4. I think that game for Michigan is not a good matchup.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd give it a 40% chance for the national title.
All right. I mean, we definitely need to talk about it, later on as we get closer to it. But with that said, we'll just have to end it here. Stay tuned for more content. We're going to try to put out more, including some baseball stuff and Lions stuff. We got a Lions game tomorrow.
We do have a Lions game, so we'll definitely get a post game in there. But there's a lot already kind of happening on the baseball side. As this off season stuff. We got to talk about the free agency. So
we got winter meetings coming up. There'll be a lot of different trades going on. So some free agent signings. So we and look, Lions. The Tigers are looking to make a splash in free agency. They signed Kenta Maeda, but they're actually targeting some players actually from Japan right now, some pitchers, which would be very interesting if they can get them. So looking forward to see how that works out. But I mean, we got a lot to talk about. So just stay tuned, subscribe, and we're not going anywhere anytime soon. We're not disappearing for a couple of weeks like we did before. So let's stay tuned because we got a lot of content coming.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we'll talk to you next time. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Yep. Take care, everybody.
Did I do it again? I did it again.
It started again. It started.
Yeah, it did, and it just stopped.
Oh,
No,
Oh,
no.
you-
I tried doing the sweep. That was just see. It's not. Nothing's working. Why is it doing it for a second time? Okay, let me refresh this. Hold on. Let's try this.
all right.
This is really embarrassing. I'm not doing anything wrong, guys. All right. Like it's just. I know my brother's gonna make fun of me here.
Totally gonna make fun of you.
Jeez. Twice in a row this is happening. Why?
Yeah.
See? That's not the outro.
That is not the outro.
That is not the outro. I'm just trying to get anything to play. And obviously it is not. So, all right. Are you going to take us out then, brother?
I will. So yeah, thanks everybody for listening to No Pad Sports Talk with JD and Steve. Listen to us on your favorite podcast station and on YouTube, and we will see you all soon.
Hey, it's better than what I got. All right. Adios.